I used to work night shifts at a small-town gas station, the kind where the air feels heavy after midnight. One night around 3 a.m., a woman walked in wearing a thin hospital gown, barefoot, shivering, and covered in dust like she'd crawled out of a basement. She didn't look at me, just wandered the aisles touching items as if she'd never seen them before. When I asked if she needed help, she lifted her head and whispered, "He's coming." Before I could react, the automatic doors slid open, though no one was there. The temperature dropped so suddenly my breath fogged. The woman bolted into the storage room and hid behind boxes. I checked the security feed. A tall, distorted shape stood just outside the door, perfectly still. I blinked, and it vanished. When I turned back toward the storage room, the woman was gone. No exit. No windows, no trace. Police searched for her and found nothing except a missing person flyer from a hospital in the next state, dated 6 years earlier. Sometimes, around 3 a.m., the doors still open on their own and the same cold rush fills the air. 2 years ago, a friend and I went urban exploring in an abandoned school. Inside, everything felt wrong. The halls were too quiet, and our flashlights kept flickering even though the batteries were new. On the second floor, we found a classroom filled with tiny handprints smeared across the chalkboard. Not dust-afresh, like they had just been made. As we turned to leave, the sound of desk scraping filled the hallway outside, one by one getting closer. We froze, then something giggled. It wasn't a child's giggle. It was wet, gurgling, like something trying to mimic a sound it didn't understand. We ran, but each turn led us back to the same hallway with the same classroom. Finally, we burst through a door that should have been locked and stumbled outside. When we returned to the car, the backseat windows were fogged from the inside, and tiny handprints covered the glass. We drove home in silence. The next morning, the prints were gone, but some nights, when I park my car, I find new ones. Lower on the glass, like something small is still following me. My cousin once rented a cheap apartment above an elderly man who lived alone. Every night, around 1 a.m., my cousin claimed he heard tapping on his floor slow, rhythmic, like someone knocking from below. One night he went downstairs to check on the old man. No answer, but the tapping continued behind the apartment door. He called the landlord, who opened it with a master key. Inside, the apartment was empty, completely vacant. No furniture, no old man. The landlord insisted nobody had lived there for 10 months. Confused, my cousin went back upstairs, but the tapping started again. The next morning, he called me, panicked, saying the sound had moved to the walls. I went to help him pack. As we carried boxes out, I noticed long scrape marks on the inside of his apartment door, as if someone had been clawing to get out. That night, he stayed at my place. At 1 a.m., in the guest room where he slept, I heard it, the slow, rhythmic tapping, coming from underneath the mattress. When I was 16, my family lived near a wooded area. My dog, Milo, was usually fearless, but one night he refused to go outside. Instead, he stared at the tree line and growled a deep, trembling growl I'd never heard before. I stepped onto the porch, and the woods went silent. Then a voice called my name. Mi exactanam. But it wasn't a person's voice, it was off, like someone playing a recording that had been stretched and slowed. I thought it was a joke until Milo yanked at my pant leg, literally dragging me toward the door. The voice called again, louder, closer. I slammed the door and locked it. My parents didn't believe me, but later that night, something scraped along my bedroom window. In the morning, we found footprints outside, bare feet, huge, almost twice the size of a grown man's, and they went straight into the woods. Milo never stepped near those trees again. And sometimes, just before a heavy storm, I still hear my name whispered in that same stretched-out voice. A paramedic once told me about a call that still haunts him. He and his partner responded to a house where a man reported seeing someone in his basement. When they arrived, the man was pale, shaking, insisting the intruder wouldn't leave. The paramedics checked the basement empty. But the man kept pointing to the corner, saying, "He's right there." He's smiling. The paramedic shined his light nothing. They chalked it up to stress and prepared to leave. As they walked the man to their ambulance for evaluation, the paramedic glanced back at the house. In the basement window, he saw a face staring up at him, wide, stretched in an impossible grin. Thinking it was a person, he ran back. The basement was again empty. When they watched the body cam footage later, the face appeared clearly right up against the glass, smiling directly at the camera, but in the reflection behind it. There was nothing casting the face, just empty darkness. The man ended up moving the next day. The paramedic quit the job a month later. He says every so often, he still sees that same grin in windows even when he knows he's alone. And used to work private overnight home care for elderly clients. One winter, she was assigned to a man who lived in a giant old farmhouse. The place was freezing, even with heaters running, and the hallways seemed to swallow sound. On her first night, around 2 a.m., she heard footsteps upstairs. Slow, dragging steps one after another directly above the room where the old man slept. She assumed it was the homeowner, until she remembered he could barely walk. She checked anyway. He was sound asleep, breathing heavily. Still, the footsteps moved across the ceiling. She called the man out, "Don't go upstairs." Just, don't. The next night, the footsteps started earlier, this time followed by the faint sound of furniture scraping. My aunt finally broke and climbed halfway up the staircase to yell for whoever was there to stop. But as she reached the top step, the air turned ice cold. A shadow crawled across the hallway low, fast, and completely silent. She fled the house. Later, the daughter admitted that every tenant who lived upstairs moved out within a week, all claiming something crouched outside their doors at night. No one has lived up there since. Last year, a rideshare driver told me about the passenger who made him quit driving permanently. It was a foggy night. Around 1:30 a.m., he picked up a woman standing alone on a rural roadside. She got in without saying a word, staring straight ahead with soaked hair and a torn blouse. He asked where she needed to go, but she only whispered, "Take me home." The app didn't show an address, so he asked again. She slowly raised her arm down along unlit road e follow wedit. After 10 minutes of driving through pitch-black forest, she whispered, "Stop here." There was nothing, just trees and an abandoned shack in the distance. When he turned to ask if she was okay, the seat was empty. No door had opened. No sound. Just an indentation on the seat, still warm. Panicking, he sped off. The next morning, he checked the dashcam. The woman wasn't visible in the passenger seat at all but at one point. Her face appeared inches from the camera, whispering, "You took me home." He reported it to the company and never drove another night shift again. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more spine-chilling tailies.